Hey everybody, Happy New Year to yous all today. Today is January 2nd, 2017. Hope you're all having a healthy and happy new year. That would be a very cool thing. Just jumping on here to kind of take us through the last section of this kind of mix. And this will be on YouTube a little bit later for you. For those of you who are watching this in the archive, welcome. And before we get started, just so everybody knows, please do yourself a favor on your YouTube player, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this on the live stream. Let me just move over and see who's in the chat. You want to make sure that your YouTube player is set to 1080p. That's going to give you the best resolution. Anything lower than that, 720 or whatnot, things are going to look blurry. You're not going to be able to see the detail as well on your screen or on your mobile device. And also, if you have the opportunity, you want to be listening to this with either your studio monitors and or a good set of headphones. If you're kind of listening to this on earbuds or watching this on a mobile device, you might not be able to hear all the changes and some of the subtleties, which is totally fine. You can always watch it on your mobile device, and then you can go back in and watch it in your studio at a later time. We've already got 6 people there. Hey everybody, Happy New Year. And I'm perfecting this setup even more and more. Now I have a second screen over here on my left-hand side, which it's actually my iPad, which is pretty cool, that I'm using as a dual screen where I can see the chat and I can see Wirecast, and then in front of me will be Studio One, which you guys will see in a second, and I can switch cameras back and forth with my keyboard, which is really cool. So if I'm looking off to the left, I'm not trying to be rude. It's because I'm looking over at the chat, and I'll try to keep my eyes on the chat as we kind of go through this. So once again, we got 10 people here already. Happy New Year, everybody. Let me know that you can hear me okay. Please let me know that you can hear me okay. When we start Studio One, I'll ask you whether or not you can hear the DAW. You should be able to hear me fine, but just kind of chat back some of the people that are showing up. Larry, Bruce, take a look or take a listen. Can you hear me? Yes, no in the chat would be great. So if you're new here and the first time at Home Recording Made Easy on my YouTube channel, welcome. Thanks for joining the live stream. And as I said a few minutes ago, all these live streams are being recorded simultaneously, and they'll all be in my archive on my YouTube channel under the playlist called Live Streams, where you can check out all the live streams I've done up to this point. I've only done a handful, and we're going to continue to do these more and more as we get into 2017, which is really cool. So if you want to see the first couple of videos from this particular mix that we're working on today, go back and check out the last 2 videos I've done over the last few days. This is going to be the third and probably, I think, the last video for this particular song, as we're getting really close to the final mix here. And I just want to take you through the vocals today, parallel compression, and then share with you some changes that I've made since the last video. So if you're new here, that's what this channel is all about, helping you try to make better mixes and masters in your home studio. And I welcome you if you are someone new. If you're someone that's been here a while and you've been to my videos and on my channel before, welcome back again. Thanks so much for all your support in 2016. And I look forward to seeing you guys again all through 2017. So if you have not done so already, please do me a favor before we get going. Hit the subscribe button on the channel. That really helps me if you want to subscribe. And you can also hit the notification little bell, I think it is, when you subscribe. So when I jump on these live streams, because a lot of times they're not scheduled, I'm not really sure when I'm going to do them. I try to fit them in when I have time. Then you guys will be notified when I'm going to be online, and you can jump in and you can watch along and ask questions. So please do that. And if you don't know about homerecordingmadeeasy.com, please go out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and check out what I have going on there. So enough of the shameless plugs. So what we have in front of us is the last version of this video here. This is a band called Moonshine. It's a country rock tune. And before we jump into the vocals, for you that have watched the other 2 videos prior to this, you know what we've already done. I just want to show you some of the changes that I've made since that last video, which was a couple of days ago. Okay, we got 13 people in the chat. Audio seems fine. That's awesome. Really cool. So when we talked towards the end of the last video, one of the things that I said that I wanted to do with these live streams, as opposed to just kind of showing you how I mix the song, which I know you guys want to see, and we talk about that stuff, and we talk about the settings and all the compressors and EQs and how to do all the settings and how to, frequencies and all that good stuff. But one thing that I'd like to kind of continue to press upon as we move forward is I want to try to bring you into my thinking of the creative process. And when we're mixing, we have, a couple of, mixing is really 2 different stages in my mind. We have the technical stage, which is, where we're doing all the cleaning of tracks, we're doing all the compression, the EQ, and all that stuff to try to get things to sound the way we want them to sound. And then once we get beyond all of that, we really get into what I really consider mixing, which is more the creative part. And, how do we enhance the song? What do we add to the song? What do we take away from the song if needed? What do we do with automation? How do we get the song to really come to life and jump out of the speakers? And to me, that's the more important thing. And a lot of times that stuff isn't always planned out. It really kind of happens, and every mix is kind of different on when it happens and what I do and when I do it. And so as I'm thinking about these things, as we're going through the process, or as I change things between live streams, I want to share that with you and kind of explain my thought process. Okay, so you can kind of see where I'm kind of coming from, and then you may try to employ some of those thought processes into your production. Make sense? So hopefully you guys are all cool with that. And so, okay, good. We got over 23 people already here. Great. So we're going to get started. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to play back, because I think right now we're pretty much, let me go over here and let me get you up on Studio One to make sure you guys can all see that. So let's do that right now. Hold on here. Let me switch over to Wirecast, and then let me go back over here. And if I go to number 1, you guys should be seeing Studio One. And please, before we move forward, can a couple of people just chime in on the chat and let me know that you can actually see Studio One, because that would be very helpful. Everything sounds perfect. Can we all see Studio One? Say yes, no. You should be able to. Yep. Okay, Bruce, you can see Studio One. Everything looks good on the screen. Right on. See it. Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, so you won't be looking at my ugly mug for a while. You're going to look at Studio One, which is what you came here for anyway, right? Okay, so because this is now what I consider to be pretty darn close to the final mix, we're probably around 85 to 90% at this point. What I like to do is a couple of things, just again, a couple of tips of things that you guys may want to consider. Okay, so the first thing I like to do is, once we get to the place where we are now with the mix, is I like to save the version of another version of this. I want to take, if I'm about 85, 90% there, or if I think I'm at the final mix stage, what I want to try to do is I want to save a copy of this. So anything else that I do from this point forward, if I want to get back to where I think is a good place, which is right where I am now, I have a version to go back to. And so I don't have to constantly worry about doing, Command Z, undo, undo, undo. I want to just have kind of a saved version, if that makes sense. So what I do is I come up, and Studio One is, they're all DAWs are a little bit different, but what I use is I like to go to the file at the top left-hand corner of our menu. And in Studio One, I like to go to Save to New Folder. And what Save to New Folder is going to do, it's going to allow me to put a new folder, which I've already done this, but I'll do this. You can see a screen pop up here. And what I do is I just kind of put it in the same directory as my original. This is a directory called Moonshine, because that's what the name of the song is and the name of this artist is. And then what I did was I created a folder here called Moonshine Rev B, meaning Moonshine is the regular session we're working in, then I'm calling this Rev B, and I'm saving it as Rev B. And what that's going to do, it's going to create a song file, it's going to create a media folder, a history folder, a cache folder, and everything. So I have a perfect copy, I'll cancel this, of the song Moonshine that I was working on. So now anything that I do in Rev B, who knows, if I screw it up, it crashes, it gets corrupt. If I make a bunch of automation changes, the things I don't like, and I want to easily get back to the start of where I was, I could just close down Rev B, go open up Rev A, and I can do that process again. Make sense? Now, that's just something I do. It's a couple extra steps, but I kind of like it as kind of a fail-safe. Once I get to the end and the project's done, I'll always go in and delete any extra copies I have just to save hard drive space. But for this purpose, that's what I like to do. So what I did was I created Moonshine, which is the name of the band, Rev B, and that's where we're at. And then before we go ahead and we start looking at what I've done on the vocals and on parallel compression and some of the changes that I made, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to play this song from top to bottom so you guys can hear where I'm kind of at. And what I'm doing now, because I'm doing analog summing, and we talked about this in the last couple of videos. You guys can go watch that. I don't have to explain that over again. But basically what I have to do is, because I have the audio going out of Studio One through an analog summer and back into Studio One, is now I need to print that that final mix, which is coming in on return 7 and 8 down here in the bottom left-hand corner of my mixer. And we talked about that last time, where all my master bus plugins are over here on the left. So now what I'm going to do is that is now going to this print track over here in red, which you guys have seen throughout this whole series, and we kind of never really talked about it. That's a stereo track in Studio One that I now need to record my mix through my return channels onto the print track, and that will be the track that I solo up and export as the quote-unquote final mix when the project's done. Make sense? So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to print this. I'm going to put this in record, and we're just going to listen to it from top to bottom so we can record this and you guys can hear where we're at. And then what I'll do from there is I'll start taking you through some of my notes on the changes that I made, and then we'll take a look at the vocals and we'll take a look at parallel compression. Okay, so here we go. So here is Come Home by the band Moonshine, and here's about a 90% done mix, give or take. Let me know in the chat as this is playing that you can actually hear Studio One and that it sounds okay, okay? Thanks, guys. Here we go. Okay, so there we are. That's probably, again, maybe 85 to 95% done. Hopefully that sounded okay to you guys out there in YouTube TV land. And what I like to do when I get to this stage, again, just like I save the session as a Rev B, I also now like to print my mix and kind of save it as a mix, you know, as a mix one, for example, just so I got to kind of have it and I can go back and I can kind of listen and, you know, I just have something there as like something to fall back on. Let me just take a look at the chat here quickly. Can I use the Hornet VST on the vocals as well? Hornet? No, I don't really know what that means. I don't use VST, so is that a VST that comes with Studio One? It might. If it does, I'm sorry. Okay, anyway, so now what I do from here is I'll mix this out. So for now that I printed it onto my track, the way to do this is take it out of record mode and I just put it in solo mode, which mutes all the other tracks. Make sure I have my start and my end flag, and now I go to export mix down and I'm going to mix this out. Now, I know this version of Studio One, sometimes, let me just cancel this. Let me save this first. Sometimes the first time you try to mix out like this, it'll crash and I may have to reopen it. So if I do, sorry, constantly be saving Command S all the time. And also I would recommend, regardless of what DAW that you use, that you save, auto save every couple of minutes, because regardless of the DAW, they all crash from time to time. Even though Studio One is one of the better ones, it does. So anyway, from now, I'm just going to use an MP3 just to do that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save it over here, Rev B, and I'm just going to put it back in Moonshine, and I'm just going to put it here, and I'm just going to call it Come Home, and I'm just going to say first mix. Okay, and I'm just going to let that do its thing. Okay, hopefully it doesn't crash. Okay, so it's we got about 3 minutes here, so hopefully you guys can, it'll speed up a little bit. So anyway, so there's a few things that I want to, once we get through this and we mixed it out, I'm going to delete off the print track and we'll start going into some of the changes. So there were a few things that I did since the last video. I could probably switch back over here to my other camera quickly. Number 2. Okay, there we go. So we have a few minutes to let this thing mix down. So there's a few changes that I made since the last video. Again, we were talking about how when I'm listening and when I'm mixing songs, I'm constantly asking myself, where can I add things? Where can I enhance things? Do I need to take things away? How do I take this thing and make it better? Now, you can go too far, you know, where you end up just throwing everything but the kitchen sink into the mix, and you want to be careful about that because this is kind of a country rock song. I want to kind of keep it kind of simple. But I also want the sections to kind of build a little bit. So the thing we talked about in the last video is that we talked about with the piano tracks, for example, I took the pianos out of the verses and only left them in the choruses. Originally, they were playing all the way through to kind of get the verses a little bit more sparse. Well, when we got to the second verse, I decided to put the piano back in. So we only have the piano missing from the first verse. It plays through the first chorus. I put it in for half of the second verse and then kind of faded it off and brought it back into the second chorus. Okay, we'll see that. It's the first thing I did. And then I did a couple of things that kind of enhanced the drums as well. I added a shaker and I added a tambourine, and I'll show you how I did that in a minute to kind of enhance the choruses of the song. I wanted to add an extra element to give the listener something else to listen to, even though it's kind of subtle. What other changes did I make? I also changed the reverb a little bit on the piano, which we'll look at, and then I did some automation on the lead guitar, and I did automation on the vocal effects for the lead and the background vocals, so the reverbs and the delays, which we'll look at in a couple seconds as well. So I'll take you through that, and then we'll go over to the parallel compression as well. What you heard also was with everything, parallel compression, the whole ball of wax. So let me switch back over to the screen here so you guys can see. You should see Studio One now, and what I'm going to want to do here is, let's see, get over to the chat while we're still waiting for this thing to kind of finish up here. How's everybody doing out there in the chat? Everybody good? We got 37 people here. Awesome. Happy New Year to everybody. You guys all must be off today from work in recognition of the holiday. Yes? Is that what we're all doing? We only got about 40 seconds here, and then this thing will be mixed out and we can continue. Sorry for the delay. If you have any quick questions, I might be able to answer them while we're waiting. Again, I do appreciate you guys spending your time here with me. About 20 seconds left, and we will jump back in. We will jump back in, and we will keep on moving. Keep on moving. Where's everybody from? Let me know where you're from. Anybody outside of the United States with us today? Last time we had a few people from Israel and Australia, which is really cool. I don't even know what time it is there. But right now it's about 11:15 a.m. on the East Coast where I'm from here. Got about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 seconds left. I know you want to get back into Studio One, so here we go. Okay, so we should be good here. You should be looking at the Studio One screen. Let me know if, hey, Ontario, Canada, Bruce, how are you? Make sure everyone can still see Studio One, yes? Just say yes or no. Somebody, Texas, hey, Derek, how are you? Everybody can still see Studio One, right? Pennsylvania, Mike. Excellent. Okay, so then what I'm going to do now is, so real simple. So I mixed down my track. I got my MP3 off. So now I'm just going to unsolo this print track. I'm going to delete this file. So I already have. Okay, everybody can see. Great. I already have the MP3 mixed down. Okay, so first thing I want to show you is a couple of things that I added. As I said, some percussion. So what I decided to do. Let me open up our drum tracks here. Oop. Having a hard time with my tracker ball today. I don't know why. Oh. It's going to kill me today. Must be because it's early for me. Okay, so what I basically did was there were sections of the song where I really wanted I wanted to have some more percussion on the drums to get things to stand out. So what I decided to do was in the down here, I took the snare, top snare mic, and I made a duplicate of it. And then I use trigger 2, which I'm going to show you in a second, to sample a shaker and a tambourine, okay? And it's following the top snare hit. So as you can see here, the snares, we had a shaker sample. What's going on here? I got to open this up a little bit. Oh, this is going to drive me nuts today. There we go. Okay. So you can see here that the shaker sample in this kind of a salmon color, it comes in on the shaker comes in on the verse. Okay. On the second and third verse is where the shaker comes in. Okay. The first verse I left it out, just brought it in the second and third verse just to keep things a little interesting, add another element. The tambourine, as you can see, came in here on the choruses. So all I did is I took a copy of the, come on, this thing is going to drive me nuts today. There we go. Let's see, resize. Wow, what's going on today with this? Anyhow, okay, so let's go over, we'll just stay in the mixer view. It's going to drive me crazy today. All right, so let's start off with the shaker. So the shaker, real simple. I copied the track, so all the plugins are still the same. All the plugins that we've been using on the snare are there on the shaker as well, except for my first plugin now is trigger 2. And I went and I grabbed a couple of shaker samples that I have, just WAV files, put it at 100% mix, and let me solo up the drums here so we can take a look at that first. You guys can just hear what this kind of does. It just kind of slightly enhances things. It's nothing, again, nothing earth-shattering, just to add a little bit of flavor. So we'll start with the shaker. We'll loop this section right here, just so we have something to listen to. And then I got to turn my print track back on. Bear with me. Okay, where's our shaker? Right here. Okay, no big deal, right? Pretty simple stuff. So all it's doing is just reading. Let me save this. Just reading the snare hit. Okay, so what's great about Trigger 2, if you don't have it, it takes any sample that's a WAV file or a trigger file. So these are just WAV files that I got from a sound library, and I believe the name of the sound is thatsound.org. If you go to thatsound.org, they have a bunch of free samples, and they have a bunch of paid samples, which are really affordable. If you're looking for percussion and drum type sample stuff and really cool high quality samples, thatsound.org is the place to go. That's what I would recommend. I have their organic percussion package, and they had a couple of shaker accents, and that's all I put in there. Okay, so I just wanted to add that to the verses just to give it a little bit of something extra when it comes in on the second verse into the third verse. And then in the choruses, as we talked about a second ago, let me just get to a chorus. All we did is I added some tambourine. Okay, no big deal. Same thing. Trigger 2, and I have a couple of tambourine samples that I layered on top of each other and blended them together. Okay, again, just to fill out the chorus a little bit again, and I kept it subtle. I kept it kind of, low in the mix. It's there, but it's, it's just kind of subtle. It doesn't really poke out at you. You can figure out where you want them. Okay, so that's what I did for the percussion. So I had a couple of percussion tracks. For the lead guitar, I went ahead, which is this little guitar here, a couple things I did. I automated it and I added some reverb to it. Now, if you remember in the last video, we used just kind of a room reverb on the drums and the guitar. We were using the H.R.M.E by Universal Audio, which I love. But that's just kind of a real short room. And on that lead guitar, because it's clean and kind of pingy, it needed something else. It was a little too dry. So what I did is I just added a second unit and added a reverb unit. And I'm using the Slate Digital Verb Suites Classic, which I love. This is becoming one of my favorite new reverbs. I talked about that before. I picked a preset and I just tweaked it. And this has, I used the chorus knob to give it a little bit of chorus. And then I also used the width knob to kind of widen it up a little bit. So let me just solo that up so you can hear it on its own. And again, whenever I'm doing all this stuff, I'm always doing it in the context of a mix, which I know you guys know because I've said that to you a million times. But I just, we're going to do this in solo so you guys can hear it. Let me just get to a lead guitar section where you can actually hear something happening. We'll do it right here in the verses. Studio One's acting a little funny on me today. Okay, hear that little reverb there? So let me, okay, just a little reverb. So it's called an intimate acoustic plate preset that I've tweaked, and I just wanted to put a little reverb to put a little bit of space on it. It's still going to the H.R.M.E, but then it's also going to this guitar reverb. And the other thing that I did to this guitar is I manually rode the lead guitar, as you can see here in the automation lane, to automate it, because this guitar in the choruses gets a little too loud, and in the verses it's just more picking, and there's a combination of picking and strumming kind of a thing. So all I basically did is I just, you know, played the song through and just used my good old trusty fader port, and I just rode the automation, as you can see here. So you can see where, and you can keep your eye on the fader down here. You can see as it's playing. Not a lot of movement. Okay, so just rode that through the song in real time. I do that with lots of tracks where I just ride it through the song and I just kind of, you know, make it a performance. I mean, that automation is really where the mix comes to life. And so this is something that I wanted to do because I didn't want that lead guitar to poke out where it wasn't supposed to, but I wanted it to poke out in other places. And you can see it here where I drew in all the automation. Okay, pretty simple. You guys with me so far? How are we doing in the chat? Everybody with me? 37 people. Excellent. Very nice. Okay, cool. So that was the other thing that I added since the last time. We also, on the piano tracks, like I said a few minutes ago, I brought those back in on the second verses. So here, oh, this is not going to let me resize. Oh, okay, here we go. So you can see here in the second verse, I just brought these back in because I just felt like, you know, from the first verse to the second verse, I wanted some percussion. That's why I added the shaker, and I brought the piano back in, and then I didn't bring it back in again until the choruses. Okay, no big deal there. Not something you really need to listen to. It was just a creative judgment on my part that I wanted to have that come back in at that point. Okay, and then we originally had the same H.R.M.E plugin for piano as well. And I decided that instead of using it as an insert, one thing I was going to do this time around, and I told you guys in the last video, I'd show this to you when I did it, is I put it on as an insert as opposed to a send, because this plugin can be used in two different modes. It can be used in the remic mode, if you can see up here in the top right hand corner of the plugin, the mode section, remic and reverb. Reverb is where you just put it on an aux, just like you normally would, and you send to the reverb like any other reverb unit. Remic is where you actually put it on the insert itself. And what it emulates that this piano was recorded in the actual H.R.M.E Studios room. And I just felt that it sounded better that way. and I'll solo this up in a second, because this was not a real piano to begin with. This was a VST instrument from what I remember, and it was done with software. And not that that's bad, but I just felt like it needed something better. When I put it on as an insert, as a reverb, and sent it to the room, it didn't sound as good as it does in line. So again, it's just about experimentation. So let me mute the lead guitar. Let me get to the piano here where you can kind of hear it. So you got that nice room sound now. Okay, so here's our two ocean ways for left and right. Okay, that's bypassed. So that was the original track. Okay, so I wanted to put it in the room. And again, by itself, it sounds a little hollow and it sounds a little distant, but in the track, it sounds really good. And the thing, this really kind of helps that kind of poke out a little bit, and it gives it a little bit more fuller sound, and it sounds like a real, or more like a real grand piano as opposed to just some software. So that's what I did on the pianos, okay? I wanted to show you that. What else did I do here? And the other thing that I did is, I showed you I did the automation on the lead guitar, but I also did automation on the vocal reverbs and delays. So when we get to that in a second, I'll show you what we did in automation. But as you can see over here on the left-hand side of my edit screen, you can see I have a folder called Vocal Effects Auto, which is the automation. So because these are buses, these reverbs and delays that I have down here for the vocals, in order to automate them, because they're not an audio track, you have to add an automation track to your edit screen. And if you don't know how to do that, if you happen to be in Studio One, I'll just show you quickly how you do that. You just come over to an empty section here, right click, and then you just say add automation track. And when you do that, you're going to get a track down here, and then you come over to this drop down arrow and you say add and remove, and then you say, well, what do I want to automate? And then you pick the track that you want to automate. Okay. If you're not a Studio One user, that means absolutely nothing to you and you don't need to worry about that. But if you are a Studio One user, that's how you do it. And then as you can see, what I did here, you can see all the automation rides. All I did during the lead vocal was just highlight all three the two reverbs and the two delays in the reverb. And I just manually wrote the fader. Just so you know, I can push up the reverb and delay in sections where I wanted to get a little more washy and pull it back where I wanted it to be a little more dry, which you'll see in a second. So that's what I did there. So let's take a look now at the lead vocals, now that I went through all the changes of some of the things and kind of brought you up to speed. So let's take a listen, and we should probably do all this in the context of the mix, because that's the way to really do this. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at our lead vocal first in yellow. Okay, so this didn't have a lot of vocals in it. This had a lead vocal double, which comes in on the choruses, and a harmony left and right. So on our lead vocal, very first plugin, again, Virtual Tape Machine by Slate Digital. We've been using that all along. Same settings as before. Over to the virtual console, again on the API console, because that's what we're doing. And then I went over to the, let's see. Over here, I went over to the, what happened to our, yeah, over to the Universal Audio 1176. Okay, so on the lead vocal, I took off the API channel strip because I wanted to do something a little different. Okay, here's all our plugins. I wanted to do something a little different with this lead vocal, because like we were talking about before, that you want to have, when you're using some of this outboard gear, I kind of think of this as like a real studio where I may only have a couple of pieces of analog hardware, and I wanted to use the 1176 on the lead vocal and the lead vocal only, because I wanted to give it some extra character, some extra flavor. So the lead vocal I wanted to treat special, because the lead vocal is special in any song that has a lead vocal. Follow me? Okay, so here we're doing a fast attack, fairly slow release, 4:1 ratio, and here's kind of what we have. Let me just loop a verse here, just so we can hear the verse section. I will find a way to get you to stay, to keep you from running away. Okay, so we're doing about 3 to 5 dB of compression. When we get to the chorus, it compresses a little more because he gets a little louder. 5 to 7 dB, 3 dB or so on the verses, okay? Just to kind of, you know, this compressor here I really love because it really gives a lot of character to the vocal and it pushes that vocal right up front. So if I took the compression away, what would we have? Let's bypass it. I'll go back to the verse here so you can hear a little cleaner. To get you to stay. Pulls it right up front. To keep you from running away. Okay. And then from there, I went over to the FabFilter Pro Q as I was doing some experimenting here. I wanted to get rid of some of the nasaliness, roll off the low end, because again, I wasn't using the channel strip, so I wanted to use this EQ to kind of do some of my cleaning up. And I did a little bit of a boost up here at about 9.5K just to kind of brighten up the vocal a little. So here's before the EQ. And I will find a way to bring you back home, to get you where you belong. Okay, so it took away some of the nasaliness and gave me a little bit of top end. And then from there, I went over to the Pultec EQ, which we used this a little bit before. And I'm cheating a little here because I talked about in the last video how, hey, if you're in an analog studio, you probably wouldn't have any more than a couple of these laying around. You wouldn't have 4 or 5 of them. And we've already used them on the overheads. But I also wanted to use them on the lead vocal because it just sounds good. And so, hey, I can cheat a little, right? So anyhow, here I did a little bit of attenuation at 60 Hertz. What's great about this Pultec is it really does something very sweet and special to the low end. And so I wanted to cut, by cutting this, it's got kind of a weird kind of a frequency curve that kind of happens with this Pultec, which is different than any other EQ. And then in the upper section here at about 12K, just a little bit of air, and that's really it. And just by running signal through this EQ, you get some nice harmonic distortion and some nice color. So if I shut it off and turn it on, you should be able to hear this if you're listening to this on a decent set of studio monitors. Find a way to get you to stay. Really opens it up. To keep you from running away. This is before. And I will find a way. Okay, just gives it a little bit of open air. Again, everything here is very subtle. You're not hearing these, at least you shouldn't be hearing these wild differences. It's pretty subtle, but that's the point. It's these little moves. You know, could I have done all of this with one EQ? Could I just boosted the hell out of everything? Probably, but I like to do things in small kind of bits and bobs. And again, always thinking about not only EQ, but how do I get some color and some excitement and some uniqueness around the track? Okay, then the last thing we went to again is we went over to another parallel EQ, or another EQ, which is the Slate Custom Series Lift. This is a parallel EQ, which I really, really like, and I'm still experimenting with this because this EQ is kind of new to me. But I went ahead and took a vocal preset and tweaked it, put a lot of low end, even though I cut some low end on the other 2 EQs. This brought back a little bit of EQ. I'm not even sure what frequency this is at, but I just wanted, just playing with it, and I just, you know, a lot of times I don't look at the knobs. I just kind of close my eyes and twist them until they feel right. And when it feels right and sounds right, then it's right. And then a little bit of on the present setting, a little more high lift. So if I turn this off, and then you can just hear what this is doing. Listen to that. To keep you from running away. I also went ahead and boosted up on the output. I was cheating a little bit because my gain staging wasn't perfect going into this, so I'm going to confess. Took the output knob and I turned it up a little, and that's why it's louder. And I know that's not the right way to do it. It's not the right way I teach it, but I was doing this quickly, and I got to the end goal the same way. But typically, you'd want to gain stage properly on the way into this, so your output level before and after volume wise is the same. So I realize I'm cheating a little. So from all my intermediate students and advanced students that are watching this, that say that you probably picked up on that, and so I admit it. Okay, I admit it. But the vocal sounds good, doesn't it? If it sounds good, that's all that matters, right? So anyway, that's what I did on the lead vocal. So again, in review, tape machine, virtual mix rack, the 1176, the FabFilter kind of doing a little bit of cleanup, the Pultec that a little bit of vintage vibe, and then the Custom Series Lift just because what the hell, it sounds good and I like the way it sounds, and that's what we did. Okay, and then we sent them over to some reverbs and delays, which I'll show you in a second. For the lead vocal double, which really just comes in on the choruses, it just kind of tucks behind the or underneath the lead vocal. Let me just bring over to a chorus section here. Okay, and the processing is very, very similar, or it's a little different, I should say. We got the tape machine, we have the virtual mix rack, and then we went back over to our API Vision channel strip, which we've been using all along here. And again, I did a roll off on a high pass filter at around, what did I do, about 90 hertz maybe. Compression 3:1 ratio, pretty quick release. Dialed it into taste on a soft knee. EQ wise, I'm doing a little bit of a bump at 800 hertz, and that's really it. And so here is our chorus with our vocal double kind of blended in. Okay, so it just gives a lot of strength to that chorus and really makes the chorus pop. Okay, so that's what I did there. And then from there, I went over again to the Fab filter, did a little bit of cleanup there afterwards, and then I went back to the Pultec again. Same settings that's on the lead vocal, because if you were to listen to the lead vocal and the lead vocal double, it's not a harmony on these two tracks. He's singing in unison, so I used a lot of the same settings. And again, a little bit less presence on this one, but used the custom series lift. So this is being treated very similar to the lead vocal track, except that I added back the Vision channel strip. Okay, so horses for courses. And then over to the harmony tracks, which are in the chorus, which I'll turn up. It's a high harmony. Just sang twice, and I just panned them left and right. Not hard left and right, only 50%, because I felt like when they were hard left and right, it got a little too wide and a little too distracting. And I wanted these vocals to kind of, I didn't want them to be too obvious. Again, just a creative decision on my part. You can always, decide that these things could be a lot louder. So anyway, I'm going to turn them up and I'll exaggerate them a little bit, and we'll play them, and you can hear it at the chorus here. Okay, pretty cool. So I'm just talking it underneath. I'll be waiting here for your return. Okay, so the treatment on this is the tape machine, the virtual console, and then over to the API. And again, I'm using 100 hertz high pass, doing about a 5:1 ratio, 3:1 ratio, pretty quick release, compressing probably 3 to 4 dB on the EQ, 12K, about 4 dB. And that was really it for EQ, and there's no other plugins on these tracks, just letting the API do its thing. Okay, and again, panned 50% left and right. And those are our vocals. That's how I process the vocals. Now let's just take a look at what I did for reverbs and delays. And I did something a little different here than I typically do, only because, again, just experimenting, trying some different things. And as all you guys are doing, you're watching this tutorial and you buy my products and you watch the way I do things and you try to apply some of those things to your own productions. Well, I try to do the same thing when I'm learning. I'm always still learning. I'm always still taking private instruction, and I'm trying to take other ideas, borrow other ideas from other engineers as well, and try them in my own productions and try to change things up a little bit to see if I can push myself to get better. So just like I tell you, you guys, should invest in your craft and your education. Well, I do the same thing. So one thing and I've always, the way I usually would process a lead vocal from a reverb and delay perspective, for a couple of years now, pretty much every mix, I would do, I would have really 4 plugins. I would have a delay first, and then from there I would go to 3 reverbs. I would go from the delay into what I call an office or a small reverb, and then from there I'd go to a plate, and then from there I'd go to a hall, and I would blend all those 4 together in very small increments to give a nice big full sound that doesn't sound washy. And it always works, and it's always worked for me, but I tried something different this time around. So the first plugin we're going to here is a reverb as opposed to a delay. And the other thing that I did on these effects channels, which I've never done before, I saw an engineer friend of mine do this and recommended it, I'm trying it, is he actually put the tape and the console before the reverb, because I guess if you think about it like an analog desk in a way, you'd be running your vocal effect through a console. So I guess it would make sense to do that. So it gives a little bit more analog vibe. I'm not sure, again, it's subtle how much I really love it, but I'm trying it. And so far it's working out pretty good. So that's something you may want to try, is put your same signal path, your tape machine and your console emulation before your reverbs and delays, on your send, on your aux channel. So see, it's in blue here. This is my aux or my effects channel. And then I just put my tape machine, my console, and then I'm going over to Verb Suite Classics by Slate Digital. And again, what I'm doing here is I'm just keeping it on the default setting, and I'm using 150 millisecond pre-delay, which is kind of the trick to this. A large pre-delay to let the reverb get out of the way of the vocal, which really works. It kind of gives it kind of a special kind of an ambiance that I've never really played with. Normally, I calculate the pre-delay of the reverb based on the tempo of the song in quarter notes. That's how I usually do it, and that works fine. Which in this case it would be somewhere around 40 milliseconds. This is what the pre-delay really normally would be. But I just jacked it up to 150, and it works kind of nice. It's kind of nice. And then I add a little bit of chorus and a little bit of width. And let me see if I mute. Let me just solo up the lead vocal so you can kind of hear what it's doing. I think it's pretty cool what it's doing. You may or may not agree, but it sounds good to me. So let me just listen to this lead vocal, and what I will do is I will mute the delay and the other. So all you're hearing is the first reverb. I will find a way. And I've already automated it, so I'm not going to play with the fader, so you can just listen to it. To get you to stay. Okay, so that's kind of the reverb that I'm going on, the first reverb, okay? And then from there, I'm coming over to a delay, okay? And I'm using the repeater by Slate Digital. This is an awesome plugin too. I love this as well. I'm still new to it, but this is a great sounding delay. If you don't have this, this is something you may want to take a look at. But prior to the delay, I'm going into the tape machine and I'm going into the console again. Again, it's something a little new to put a little bit analog, a little vibiness on my delay. And on the delay, I'm going with a quarter note delay here, and that's pretty much it. Just going to a quarterback delay, and I'm going about, where am I going on the feedback? Around 46% feedback, just under 50%. I'm using this analog button, which adds a little bit of vibe to it. I kind of left everything else kind of alone, and this is kind of what it's doing here. Let me give you this. To keep you from running. Okay, so there's our delay, which is a little bit longer than what I would normally do, but I kind of dig in the way this thing kind of worked. I like this kind of quarter note delay that kind of has almost a 50% feedback. Again, in the mix, it's not as noticeable, and it's after the first reverb, where normally I would put the delay first, but I'm just switching things up a little bit. Okay, so coming from the first reverb that we just looked at to the quarter note delay, here's what we have. We'll find a way to get you to stay. Okay, pretty cool, right? At least I think so. And then from there, I'm going to a vocal slap, another delay, and I'm going to a very short delay. And again, I'm using the tape machine and the console again, and then I'm following up with Soundtoys Echo Boy, which was my favorite delay unit until I got this repeater by Slate Digital. But this is an awesome plugin as well. This has got a gazillion presets in it, which I really like, and a lot of them are very usable. And I just took a vocal preset, and there is one called Super Compressed Slap, a very quick delay, which is what I wanted. Something to just thicken things up a little bit. And the key to this one is 166 millisecond delay. Again, just something that someone had showed me. Said, trust me, put it on 166. Used an analog style down here in the right-hand corner. You can change the style of the delay. I used analog just because why not? I cranked up the saturation a little bit, and that was really it. And it's in sync with the tempo of the song at 166 milliseconds, 100% wet. And here's kind of what we have. Now, this is going to be subtle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the other two because it is subtle. And I want you guys to just hear just this delay. To keep you you know. From running. Okay, so it's a real quick slap back. Okay, so basically what I have is I have the vocal going into the longer reverb first, then into that quarter note delay, and then into a quick slapback delay, and that gives me kind of my finished vocal effect sound. I'll find a way to get you to stay. Okay, and then blended in the mix, it doesn't sound that noticeable, obviously. So let me just unmute everything and just give you the verse with the whole kind of kit and caboodle here. We'll find a way to get you to stay. Okay, it's really kind of buried in the track a little. It's there, it thickens up the vocal, but it's not overly washy because this song doesn't need a lot of wash. But what I felt it did need, and as you can see, I just kind of find the blend that I like between the three, which is what I did. And then from there, what I talked about a few minutes ago is I then went ahead and I automated the effects. I just highlighted them, so I temporarily grouped them, and then I rode the fader, as you can see, from the top of the song to the bottom. And basically what I did in the verse is at the end of every phrase, you'll see, because I'll play the first verse here so you can see the automation, I pushed it up. So when he gets to the end of a line, like the word away, I'll push it up so you hear a little bit more delay. So I'm riding the effects. And I'm not sure that I'm 100% happy with this again. Again, this is about 95% done, 90% done. I may rewrite these vocals again, but this just gives you an idea on what you should be thinking about or what you can do. So here's the first verse, and you can see the automation on your screen. I will find a way to get you to stay. Keep you from running away, and I will find a way to bring you back home, to get you where you belong. 'Cause Jenny, you're always gone. Okay, so that's what I did on the automation for the reverbs and delays, and that's not something I typically do. I've done this before, but it was something in this song I felt like it needed. I felt like the reverb and delay in certain sections, I wanted to hear it a little bit more than in others, and again, I might tweak that a little bit more, but again, something to think about. And on this lead vocal, which I don't know if this has ever happened to me, I did not feel on the lead vocal I needed to automate it at all. It almost seemed like the vocal level was perfect. Normally, I'm also writing the lead vocal automation-wise. I didn't feel like I needed it on this song. Now, again, a day later, when I come back with a fresh set of ears and I listen to this, I may feel a little differently and I might do a little automation on the lead vocal. But for now, it seems like it sits right where it's supposed to, which is really cool. So that's how I kind of process the vocals and the reverbs and delays. Everybody still with me before we get over to parallel compression? Let's check out the chat room quick. Justin, do you feel you can, I'll answer a couple of questions. Justin asks me, do you feel you can achieve the same results using a non-UAD emulations from Slater Waves or the, yes, absolutely. I'm using UAD, Justin, just because that's what I've always used. I also have the Waves version of the 1176s, and they're fantastic. The Slate version of the 1176, which is the FG, I think it's called the 116 Vintage and Modern. Those are great as well. I have them all. Again, what I find is that for me, and again, this is just me, I tend to gravitate more towards the universal audio stuff. Because I like the way it sounds. I'm used to the way it sounds, and it's just a personal preference thing. But then the answer to your question is 100% yes. If you have a Waves 1176 or a Slate FG116, you can get the same results. So don't have no fear about that. You don't need universal audio. It's just I'm just using it because that's what I typically use, and that's why I'm showing it to you. Mike is asking, is there any chance I can let you know about the advance when I'm doing these live streams? Yes, Mike, I do. Yes, I'm going to have two kinds of live streams here. Before we jump to parallel compression, I'll just answer this. So I just did one a couple of weeks ago where I scheduled it about a week in advance, and that was my first one. And a lot of people showed up, and it was great. But part of what I want to do with these live streams is I'm going to be showing you guys things on kind of the fly. And a lot of times, Mike, I don't know when I'm going to have time to do these. And if I'm working on a client project like this, where I may just jump on as I'm going through the mix and I might show you guys something. And then it's always going to be archived on the YouTube channel in the live streams playlist, so you can watch it later on. That's why I suggest when you subscribe to the channel, if you turn on the notifications when I'm on, if I do jump online, at least you'll get notified that I'm coming and you can come find me. But I will also do some regularly scheduled live streams as well, like maybe once a month, where I will say, look, it'll be the last Friday of every month or something like that. I haven't gotten there yet, Mike, just because I'm new to live streaming. I just figured out the stupid software and everything this last week, so bear with me. And I do realize that people want a little bit more notice, and I will try to do that as much as I can. So thanks for the question. Okay, cool. So and then one last one, Dave is asking, do I use Easy Keys or Easy Drummer? I use both. Not in this song, but I have Easy Drummer and I have Easy Keys, and they both sound amazing. So thanks for the questions, guys. Let me jump over now, last but not least, over to, we're at about an hour almost already, to parallel compression. So down here in purple, excuse me, we have all our parallel compression tracks, and they're all down here on the right-hand side of the mixer. We have P drums, P bass, P stands for parallel compression, P guitars, keys, lead vocals, background vocals. And basically, and if you want to know, or if you want to see a real in-depth demonstration on parallel compression, how and why, I have a couple of videos on the YouTube channel, and I also have a real in-depth teaching in Mixing Made Easy Volume 2. If you don't have that, go check that out on my website. But my thinking behind parallel compression, and a lot of other engineers as well, is it really where the mix at the end really comes to life and really gets that thickness and that bottom end without getting muddy, really happens in the parallel compression. To me, it's kind of like the secret weapon of the mix. You know, when you're listening to a mix that doesn't have parallel compression, and then when you add the parallel compression, there's a big difference. And the way for me to explain that is just to demonstrate it. So this whole time you've been listening with parallel compression, I'm going to mute all these tracks. I'm going to play this first verse for you. Now, again, this is subtle, and I'm going to take you through the compressors that I'm using in a second. But the key here is that you're going to over-compress each one of these group of tracks. You're going to compress them pretty hard, and then we're going to tuck them in underneath the regular tracks, which you can see here in the busing system to the left of the parallel tracks. Look at the way these faders are, and then look at the parallel faders. They're all lower. Okay, and just bring it in underneath, and what that does is it gives a little bit of thickness and a little bit of life and a little more punch to the mix. So I've got them muted right now. Halfway through the verse, I'll kick them on, and if you're listening to this on a good set of studio monitors and or headphones, you should hear the difference. So let's see. Here comes the verse without it, and then keep your eye on the mouse here, and I will click these things in.
I will find a way to get you to stay, to keep you from running away, and I will find a way to bring you back home, to get you where you belong, 'cause Jenny, you're always gone.
Okay, so hopefully you can hear that the track doesn't really get louder. I guess there is a little bit of volume there because we're adding extra audio to it, so it's going to get a little louder, but it really isn't the loudness that is really apparent, at least not to me. And again, how this comes over the live stream, I'm not quite sure, but it gets a little wider, it gets a little thicker, and there's a lot more punch in the bottom end. So, you know, like when you start on a mix typical like this, a lot of guys, and me included, a lot of times we start with the drums, right? We mix the drums, you get the drums sounding great. We add the bass, the guitars, percussion, keyboards, vocals, and by the time we get to the end of the mix, you ever feel like, wow, I kind of love the way my drums sound, but I don't really have that punch of the kick and the snare anymore, right? But you don't want to go over there and just turn up the kick and the snare, because if you do that, not all the time, but sometimes what'll happen is now you screwed up your whole mix of the drums. And so parallel compression is a great way to get, in this example, drums to really cut through the mix. and it just adds a little bit of thickness to the bottom end. So let me show you what I did with the drums here. So basically what I used on this track is I used the, and I have only used this one other time. Typically I would use an 1176 on this, but I wanted to try something new because I'm a rebel like that. So I'm using the Slate Digital VMR, and I'm using the Monster, which if you have the VMR by Slate Digital, I believe this is a free plugin. It's either that or the Bomber. One of those are for free. I know Revival's for free, the Trimmer's for free, and I believe the Monster is for free too. So go check that out. But basically, this is the emulation of the 1176 in the all buttons mode, which is world famous for being used on drum buses for parallel compression. So basically, I picked Steven's preset called Drum Group Smasher and just tweaked it, where we're using a very quick attack and a very slow attack and a very fast release, cranking up the input. When I turn this on, you're going to see that the needle is going to be between 10 and 20 dB of compression. I have the mix on 100%, and let me just solo up the drums here so you can hear the effect of this by itself. So I'm going to solo this up, I'm going to solo this up, and then I'm going to turn this on. So here's just the drums without parallel compression. And here comes the parallel compression track. Listen to that low end. Okay, so you see all that bottom end and that crack of the snare that we had come out with the parallel track. So basically I just take all the drum tracks, send it pre-fader all the way down to the parallel track, except for the overheads and except for the rooms. I don't typically send those to the parallel track. That's just my thing. Because I usually already over-compress those a little bit on the original tracks to kind of bring out the sound of the room. But you can experiment and you can do them with both. I usually just do it with the close mics, but that's just my thing, okay? So that's what I did for parallel compression on drums. Now if we go over to bass, and I'll solo up the bass. And here comes the bass parallel compression. Okay, it just adds a little bit more thickness. I use the LA2 for this, and again, just cranked up some gain reduction. That's before, after. Okay, so it just gets a little bit rounder, just a little bit more, thick, okay? Okay, you can see the fader's kind of low here. Now for the guitars, let's just solo up our guitars. Using the Universal Audio 1176 Anniversary Edition on this one, and the reason why I'm using the Anniversary Edition is because this one has a super extra slow attack. You can see that on the attack, it's got a much more slower attack than on the other versions of the 1176. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I didn't want to compress this one as much, because distorted guitars already have a lot of compression out of them just coming out of the amp. I just wanted that a little bit of thickness. Muted. Now here comes parallel compression. Okay, that one's a lot more subtle than probably the other ones. But again, it's definitely there, but it is subtle. Same thing on the keyboards here. This time around, I tried something a little different. I went with a different compressor. I'm using the Slate Digital FG Gray just because, I don't know, just wanted to try something different. And so let's get over to the chorus section where we can listen to the piano. Okay, so here is our before, and I'll kick it in halfway through. Okay, so that's pretty much what I did with the piano. So I'm checking out the chat. Okay, you guys lost audio on the chat. You guys can't hear it? Really? It seems like, let me just take a look here and see what's going on. You can't hear me either, or is it just, let's see, YouTube is, oh, it says YouTube is experiencing some issues with streaming. That's the message that I'm getting here, unfortunately. Let me see what we got going on here. So it seems like YouTube is having an issue. Can you guys hear my voice at all? Can you guys hear my voice at all? It looks like YouTube is having an issue, guys. That's the problem, the message that I'm getting here. No, you can't hear my voice. So it seems like we're having an issue with our, I'll get back on the main camera here. I don't know if this will ever make it on YouTube or not, but we'll try. So it seems like we're having a problem with YouTube, guys. And if you're going to be watching this in the archive now, again, I apologize. We were just about done anyway, to be completely honest. We were right down at the parallel track. So this kind of probably ended pretty much right at the... right at the end there. So anyway, that was parallel compression. Again, I didn't take you through the lead vocal or the background vocal. I'll do that right now. I don't even know if this will make it to YouTube, but I will certainly try. Basically, what I did for the lead vocal is I went to the H.R.M.E by Slate Digital. Again, same thing, overly compressed it and then tucked it underneath. And then we also did the same thing with the background vocals. And this time I used a different version of the LA2A, and I just did the same thing. So other than that, there's not much else I can really show you guys in this particular video. I'm really, really sorry about that. But hey, it happened towards the end, and that's the problem when you do things live. You never know what the hell is going to happen. But I do appreciate everyone kind of joining me, and for people watching this in the archive, hopefully you got a good enough lesson out of this song by Moonshine. This was a fun song to mix. Go back, watch the other videos so you could see just about the whole mix. And then I'll be doing some more of these in the very near future, and we'll do a different track this time around so you guys can see that as well. So again, hit that subscribe button, head out to the Facebook page, like me over there on Facebook, Home Recording Made Easy, and also check out homerecordingmadeeasy.com for all your training needs on mixing, mastering, and recording, so you can make better music in your home studio. So until the next live stream, this has been David Vignola. Thank you so much for your support, guys, and I will talk to you all soon. Take care.